4 shots rang out. Even at 7, 8, and 9 years old, we instinctively knew to duck for cover. Like trained soldiers, we reacted to the beat of the battle cry. Moments before night and day were reveling in their customary dance before trading places, and the sun had turned that golden orange, somewhat yellowish color it turns just before it disappears. We were clinging to the final moments of freedom before the street lights came on, when Dina came sprinting around the corner in full stride, arms pumping. She looked just like Flojo sprinting towards the goal when 4 shots rang out. Later, we all agreed that the shot sounded like pellets from Reggie's BB gun. 4 short bursts, and then just for a split second, absolute silence. Moments later, parents scrambled for their children frantically while the distant sirens announced the cavalry's out-of-time arrival. Long before they decorated the middle of the road with bright yellow tape, drew a dusty white chalk outline, and tossed a muddy tarp over her broken body, we knew. We knew when the wagon appeared. I wish I could say this was just a story. I wish I could say that this was just another tall tale told, but I can't. I was that 9-year-old witness, and this is a powerfully painful and persistent memory from my past. An integral moment among the cachet of moments that weave together the stories of my life. And through the lens of these lived experiences, I affirm passionately and proudly my middle and high school classical magnet academy mantra, Nonschool Sed Vitae Discimus. Nonschool Sed Vitae Discimus, which translates to mean we learn not for school, but for life, is the mantle upon which I rest and retrieve my daily work as a mindful and dedicated parent, educator, and lifelong learner. Nonschool Sed Vitae Discimus is the mantra that manifested through the lessons that gave me the language to lament the loss of life and the loss of our innocence when the wagon appeared. Dina's story is not an isolated incident. Where I grew up, we buried far too many neighbors, far too many family members, far too many friends. For many of them, the prison or the grave were their only future probabilities, and so they never dared to dream of other possibilities. Not only did I dare to dream, but with the support of a close-knit family who valued education and an education that valued my life and lived experiences, I learned how to transform those dreams into reality. As my lived experience crept into the classroom and the classroom seeped into my lived experience, I began to understand and own my power to be healed and to provide healing. That transformation would not have been possible without the guidance of great educators, much like many of you sitting in this audience tonight. And you know, someone asked me just the other day why, especially since this is not the career that I planned for, why after 17 years was I still teaching? And in speech and spirit and without hesitation, I remarked, I remain an educator because of those great educators who made all the difference in my life. The great educators like Mr. Robert Keith, who had the heart to lead an academy that celebrates collaboration and critical thinking, an academy that honors diverse families and communities. And most importantly, I can't thank Mr. Keith enough for making certain that students whose skin looked like mine, who came from zip codes like mine, who came from neighborhoods like mine, were educated without exclusion. I remain an educator because of great educators like Mr. Robert Buckley, who to this day still sends me greetings and great reads, who plans reunions with 2 of my other favorite high school teachers, Mr. Lawrence and Dr. Hines, math and science, respectively, and who leads our alumni group in an online weekly prayer vigil. Those great men remain a constant in my life. I remain a great educator because I had great educators who, like Dr. Kim Bridgeford, I first met as a senior in high school. In fall of 2016, Dr. Bridgeford edited a play by New York Times bestseller Mr. Russell Goins, myself, and CMS students from West Mecklenburg High School. She even flew to Charlotte to witness the West Meck Drama Guild perform the play to sold-out crowds right here in Spirit Square. And just to think, many moons later, and Dr. Bridgeford is still editing my writing. I remain an educator because of educators like Dr. Betsy Gardner, who gave heart and purse to make certain that I crossed the finish line with a dual degree in English and psychology from Fairfield University, class of 1999. She not only taught us about human behavior, but she opened my eyes to a world of possibilities when we engage in authentic relationship building and when we understand the impact of our relational transactions. Dr. Gardner, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I remain an educator because of great educators like Hartford Public High School's 2016 Teacher of the Year, Mr. Gary Lautrec, who you see featured in the middle here. Can you imagine that was my freshman high school English teacher? Either he ages well or I look old for my age. Which is it? Make the right choice. That's right, he ages well. It's no surprise that Mr. Lautrec is still challenging minds and inspiring hearts almost 3 decades later. These educators imbued in me a sense of the transformative power of learning for life and lifelong learning. And I will always be dedicated to them, just as our students will always be dedicated to us. That learning does not stop in grade school, neither does it stop in graduate school. In fact, it is continuous. As we stand in their stead, we must develop lessons that honor the diverse stories of our diverse students. We must engage those students in real-world life learning. We must honor those students' experiences, and we must let those students know that their lives matter. Through experience such as Charlotte Teachers Institute, I became engaged in the power of inclusive stories, and I learned to use that power to help students find their voices and strengthen their voices and birth and narrate their stories. Through transformative experiences like Teacher Fellows Institute, I learned about brain-based learning and the power of creative lessons. As a part of the Tolle Institute, I sang along during Shabbat service at a visit to the local Jewish center. As a year-long Duke and UNC MEAC Fellow, I traveled seas to Morocco to engage with fellow visitors, fellow educators, and students there. And as a Yale Macmillan Center Teacher Fellow, I was able to contribute to an international treasure trove of interdisciplinary lessons. Did I tell you about the beauties of Morocco? The ancient souks in the Atlantic Ocean were absolutely picturesque, almost as beautiful as the people. I share these life experiences to honor those giants that saved that 9-year-old girl and many others from a probable fate. I share these life experiences to remind you all of the power that we hold as educators. And I share these life experiences to remind you that we learn not for school, but for life. Thank you.